Welcome to Hoop Collective Podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're recording here on Monday. First off, I just want to thank everybody who was a part of the live podcast that we did last week in Akron, Ohio. If you haven't seen it or heard it, it's available on the channels and feeds. We had a great turnout, great reaction. It was a really wonderful night with Larry Nance and Keith Dambrot and Bontemps and McMahon. So definitely check that out. We had a great time. I'm glad we did that. We'll never do it again until I get talked to do it again. So also last week, I recorded an interview with DeMar DeRozan, Sacramento Kings' new wing, which, as I told him, as you'll hear in a second, still feels weird to say. He has a new book out. It's a book that is unlike most player-written books. This is not a book you normally would see a player write in the middle of his career, and is, it's not like a tragic book, but certainly a lot of sad parts in it for a guy who you generally think is had a really good career. Some of the stuff he struggled with. We have a really good conversation, especially about his childhood and a little bit about what's going on with him now and what's happened with him from his departure from the Bulls and over to the Kings. So we've got that coming up here. This was recorded last week. Thank DeMar for his time, and I hope you enjoyed this interview with DeMar DeRozan. Okay, joining us now, as we were mentioning, from the Sacramento Kings, still doesn't sound right. DeMar DeRozan, Sacramento King. How's that sound to you right now?
Still getting used to, but I'm looking forward to, give me a couple months, I make it normal.
Yeah, it's going to be weird to see you in a Kings jersey. I'm not going to lie. For some reason, it just, although it's home, right? It's you're back in California after all this time.
Yeah, after all this time, made it to California one way or another. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason you're here is you just put out a book, which I've read a big chunk of. Haven't quite finished it yet because it just came out. And I want to ask you. This sounds kind of basic, but it's called Above the Noise: My Story of Chasing Calm. Everybody knows that you've been outspoken about the struggles and the challenges that you've had getting balanced in your life. The chasing calm line, is that, because the funny thing about this is, DeMar, anybody who kind of sees you from the outside, like, you seem like a guy who's always calm. Your demeanor is always calm. I mean, obviously sometimes you show emotion, but you are a guy that I would say looks calmer than the average guy on the court. And so when I see that title, I say, man, that's amazing, because this is a guy who looks like he has achieved calm a lot of times.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was even part of my even coming out back in 2018, was that same, perspective was always viewed of me. Like, everything always seemed fine with me. And in a lot of ways, I always was screaming out for help. And even with the tweet back in 2018, that was me kind of screaming out for help, because everybody always just thought I was always, just fine, upbeat. Everything was always smooth with me all the time. And, I think I had just hit my breaking point, hit a wall, and, what led me to be where we are today.
So this book is extremely emotional and tells a lot about your childhood. Why did you, I understand that you are trying to send a positive message, especially about people who are chasing calm themselves. But this was a very emotional thing to do for somebody like you who's still in your career. Like, why did you want to do this, and why did you make this so emotional, especially about your childhood, DeMar?
Yeah, I think, it's a lot of stuff we carry into our adulthood that kind of starts when from your childhood, and for me, identifying a lot of those emotions on why I was certain ways while I was older. I think I thought it was big just to identify those and kind of make yourself vulnerable in those moments, to kind of make everybody kind of look in the mirror at times and try to figure out where a lot of stuff stemmed from. I kind of wanted to express that more so than anything, and especially still playing, showing things in real life, in real time, because I'm still going through a lot of stuff that even from when I did the book to now, still a lot of things that I'm going through, that I do go through, that I'm still trying to figure out and be better in. But for the most part, just wanted to just be an open book, be vulnerable completely, break myself all the way down to give other people the hope that they could do it too. And sometimes doing that, it comes with a lot of emotional trials and tribulations that comes with it, because you identify a lot of things you kind of swept under the rug.
Yeah. So how have your NBA peers reacted to, well, this book is just now getting out, people are just now seeing it, but you are being open about this? Because one thing that I see from the outside of NBA teams, I'm not on an NBA team, but being around players, sometimes vulnerabilities, maybe they'll be applauded outwardly, but sometimes people attack vulnerabilities. It's kind of the athlete mantra. And while the NBA is definitely a progressive league, I'm not so sure that it's always progressive with feelings. There's certain ways that the NBA, in a lot of ways, is conservative when it comes to things. Maybe not from a political standpoint, but there are a lot of NBA players have conservative views on other things. So, how has it been? Since you've been outspoken about this over the last 5 or 6 years, how have people treated you?
I mean, the reception from my peers has been everything to me.
Hmm.
I've had guys still playing, guys retired who would text me, or I come across in person, and you know, absolutely love or even open up from their perspective what it is that they may be going through, that I probably gave them hope to even express it, to talk about it, to feel more free, or even wish that they had or was a part of that opportunity while they was playing or earlier in their career. So from a peer's perspective, I get nothing but love and admiration from my peers. It's the best thing, ever. From younger guys my age, and like I said, a lot of retired guys as well. And to me, that that's all I need, because it let me know I'm doing the right thing, and on top of, when I first came in the league, all I ever wanted to do was be respected by my peers, by my game.
Hmm.
Then, now being to a point to where being respected by your peers as a individual means even more.
Because I do think that you are a very highly respected player. Like, people respect the way you go about your business. They respect that you've carved out a really strong career, um, and to open yourself up for that matters. If that does obviously matter to you. It's mattered to you throughout your life, because in some of the stories that you tell in this book. Because, by the way, it sounds like you got into a lot of fights as a kid. This is not. I would not picture you as somebody who got into a lot of fights. It sounds like you got into a lot of fights. In fact, people had to come to you and say, "Stop fighting."
Yeah.
But I do think you are a guy who definitely kind of gets respect, but apparently that's been something that you've had to fight for, because otherwise, I don't know if you'd have been in those fights when you were younger.
Literally, and I think that's why I carry myself like the way I carry myself now. It is I want to give the utmost respect to anybody I come across. Um, I always just try to be that that great inspiration when I come across anybody, in any type of way, whether if it's meeting them, joking with them, because I always look at it like a conversation. Even though if you don't know me, I want you to leave from a conversation with us feeling like you had a good day or that was a great meeting, because I know how many painful and frustrating days I had as a young kid. I remember being mad for no reason, going outside, just picking a fight. I got expelled out of elementary school for that same reason. And
Is that right? You got expelled for fighting.
yeah, yeah,
DeMar, I would never have believed that.
see, that's my thing. And I think without those trials that I went through, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. And I had to go back and identify a lot of those things, because a lot of the good things from me came from a lot of stuff that I had to learn from a very young age too.
So you write a lot in the book about the gang situation that was in your area in Compton. I think most of your neighborhood was from the Crips, was involved with the Crips, although you had family members, close family members who were in the Bloods and in the Crips.
Mhm.
So you say that you were able to avoid that. So my question is like not having been from that background, this is something I can't relate to. How are you a very emotional kid who's looking for a fight? Something was obviously driving you to look for fights. You had a challenging situation at home with your family because it was just, you were from meager circumstances, even though your both of your parents were with you, and you had a huge relationship with your dad, which we'll talk about in a minute. But how are you a kid that is immersed in that situation, who definitely has this streak where you're looking for a fight, and you avoid falling into that situation that basically was all around you throughout your childhood?
Yeah, I mean, it was one. I was able to have a lot of older, whether if it was cousins or friends that was, a lot older than me. A lot of times, my childhood, I always was the youngest, and a lot of my frustration was trying to or wanting to be like a lot of people in my neighborhood, and a lot of times that was kind of a pushback from them, like, nah, whether they had the utmost respect for my mom, my grandmother, whatever, to make sure I stayed away from so much stuff. So with that, it was a battle that I fought of just wanting to be more accepted within the street culture, when it was more so a pushback from me knowing or feeling like I had an opportunity to make a way out. So with that, you you try to find a lot of ways to be self-destructive. Any small thing you want to poke at and pick at just to start a fight or be a part of a fight. And a lot of, I could admit now, a lot of those fights was, my own insecurities, my own reasoning. And a lot of times it was no reason behind them at all. I just wanted to do, what I thought was cool in a lot of those moments. So um a lot of those situations kind of stem from just me wanting to be like everybody else that I seen.
Yeah, well, you were your mom's only child. I know you had a couple of half siblings that were a lot older than you that you really didn't have much of a relationship with. Do you think being an only child was a factor in all this?
Yeah, because I had a lot of moments where I felt alone. Obviously not having much, comparing yourself to other people you may see at school one day having some nice shoes and you don't have nice shoes. Or, I remember days getting dropped off at school and halfway walking to class, I got to look back and I see my dad car broken down and he got the trunk open trying to figure out how to start the car, and, people laughing at you, making fun of you. And so a lot of that will build up insecurity and a lot of frustration that at the time I didn't know, but only way I knew how to combat it was physical altercation.
Mhm.
Because like I said, my own insecurities, but a lot of things that I was facing with that I didn't necessarily know how to express. Then getting picked up going home from school, my parents was older. It wasn't like I could go talk to them. I didn't have siblings around my age that I could go talk to them.
Yeah.
So, you felt isolated and alone more so than anything.
Well, you're a big guy. By NBA standards, you're kind of average, but by average at the high school, you're a big guy. Like, I assume you won a lot of fights, or how was your record?
I would say I won the ones that mattered the most. I won the ones that mattered the most.
Well, you've hit some big shots in your career. That maybe that comes. Which, by the way, I want to ask you about your nickname, Debo. I'm sorry, I don't understand. You describe it in the book. I don't quite understand it. It obviously comes from the movie Friday, which is, I know it's laughable that this 46-year-old guy. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but Debo loses. Mar. Debo loses the fight. You say that the nickname Debo came from you winning a fight, and I'm
Yeah.
throwing a flag and saying, no, 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 Debo lost. Craig won. How do you win a fight and then get nicknamed the villain who lost the fight? I don't get it.
I think I never forget the moment it happened. I got in a fight with someone that was older than me, and I was younger, sixth, seventh grade. I think this guy for sure was in high school, either ninth, 10th, but he always used to come pick on everybody. He was a bully whenever people seen him coming, it was like a thing. Like everybody went the opposite way, and he was
Like the
always
squeaky wheels on the bike.
yeah. Like it was that like he really was the Debo, but the way I won the fight, I just remember somebody on campus when it happened saying, "Dang, DeMar beat dude up like he was Debo,"
I see.
and
Okay.
that reference, and somehow, some way, it just literally stuck, and it's been my nickname ever since. But to your point, I used to wonder the same thing, like, well, lost, like, you know what I mean? So I got it for taking down.
So it's from the other part of the movie when he knocks the guy out.
Yeah,
That's okay. All right. That makes more sense. I got it. So in this book, your dad played a huge role in your life. You spent a lot of time with him. You wrote about um, how you guys used to watch. He worked for a video production company, and he could dub tapes, right? And so like he would dub a lot of tapes. You watch a lot of movies, but also you would dub old NBA games that he got tapes of, and that like a lot of your learning of education of the game was you sitting with him watching like games from like the late 70s, early 80s that were on VHS that were dubbed. I know you talked about the Magic Johnson. Like you weren't even alive when Magic hit the famous hook shot,
yeah.
right?
No, I
But you had
wasn't.
seen it many times over.
I didn't seen it so much. I remember it was a point to where I used to watch so many old games. I used to think they was current time. Like
Yeah.
like, he used to make me watch them back to back to back and explain them. And a lot of times, especially back then, you remember they used to didn't have the score at the bottom. You didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Flash, every now and then the score or who's playing and everything. But I used to really sit there and watch till it got to a point to I used to watch so much old school basketball to where certain moves, certain players, certain things start to make sense as I got older, and my knowledge of the game was already there before I could even be good at basketball. So that was one thing he always made sure I did was watch basketball.
Yeah. So he was tough on you, right? One of the things I think that I took away from this book almost more than anything, because I have a 6-year-old that he's really into sports and I want to talk to him. You were saying that you almost were afraid to have a son.
Yeah,
Um, I think because the challenges that would come with raising him because of the way you were raised, largely by your father. Like that relationship is obviously hugely important to you. He played a huge role in your life, but it was a difficult relationship at times.
yeah, definitely was difficult, because all you all you kind of always all you want as a kid is just to be accepted and loved by your parents more so than anything. And I was in search of that so much, but it was always met with some type of aggression of being hard on me in a sense of whatever reason, whether knowing when I go to school or I walk outside, like life is gonna be tough on you. How you gonna handle it when it's tough on you? And he was teaching me that more so than anything. And I never forget as I got older and I accomplished a lot of stuff, taking care of my parents. He was able to see, the height of my career, especially my Toronto days, where he finally told me how proud he was of me, and that meant the world to me. And him just expressing how he pushed me so hard to be able to, even before he passed, I'll never forget. It's like, I could rest now because you made it and did everything that I could ever imagine you do. You did it. Like, and that meant the world to me, But, as a kid, you kind of want that feeling, that loving feeling and everything. So that's why I was fearful of having a son. But even having my son now, it's like I hug my son to death to where he pushes me off. Like
Yeah.
those the moments that I wanted more so than the tough moments when I was a kid. But I also understood why my dad did it because I was growing up in such a harsh environment that I had to be prepared for it.
Yeah. So here's what I don't understand. You were a star basketball player from when you were very young. Part of the reason why you were protected by your community was because people understood. And this is unfortunately a story we hear a lot from star athletes who come from the inner city. They're protected. So you feel worried about the kids who aren't protected, right? But you were a star. You were winning major events when you were a teenager. You were a McDonald's All-American. You had a bunch of scholarship offers. You went to USC.
down the road from your home, like star player at USC. You were a lottery pick. Like before you even did anything in the NBA and made your fortune, you were achieving at a super high level. Like Dame Lillard plays the card that nobody kind of respected him. I get it. He went to Weber State. 4 years. He wasn't. He took him a long time. But like you were achieving such a high level, so it's so sad to me, DeMar, that has so many difficult memories for you that you describe in this book, and that you couldn't get your father's approval, even though you were accomplishing so much.
Yeah, because I think even conversations with that's the cool thing. As I got older, and we used to sit and laugh about a lot of conversations, and even him telling me he never wanted me to be satisfied with something. I remember getting trophies as a young kid. I'd be so excited to go home and put the trophy up, and he'd be like, "Nah, this whole row got to be filled with trophies." You know what I mean? But even enjoy that one trophy, but with that, it just made me feel like I got to do more. I got to work more. I got to be better. I got to be better, because he never wanted me to have that on my subconscious that I did enough, and not even just with sports. He did it with me with life, and I think that's why to this day, I try to be very respectable to others. I try to be a positive light. I try to be all these things because my dad used to teach these things to me more so than anything.
Yeah, one of those conversations you had later was you used to steal his car, borrow, I don't know what you want to say, take his car without him knowing after he went to bed.
Yeah,
And
that was another cool memory that I was glad I shared with him, because he always used to think the neighbor was ciphering the gas, and it was thing that I used to just sit there like, if it was dinner or something, I'll be eating. He'd be like, "Man," he'd just walk in the house saying, "I know I just put gas in his car the other day. It must be the neighbor." And like, to the point to where he used to look out the window at night and see if the neighbor was stealing gas.
But
Um,
the crazy story is, one night you pulled out of wherever his car was parked, went out, hung out, did your thing, came back, like I don't know what time, sometime in the middle of the night, and somebody else was in the spot.
yeah,
So you literally waited all night for the person to move. The person moved at like 6 a.m, and you quickly parked it in there, ran in the house. You said you waited like 3 hours, and he never knew. You got away with it.
no, but them 3 hours, I was so terrified of trying to explain what happened. Hope car move. It was so many emotions that I was going through. I never forget that day. Like it happened like a movie. Like it was literally like
Anyway, so your dad passed away a few years ago. First off, I want to say that Gregg Popovich wrote the foreword to this book. When I saw that on the cover of the book, I was shocked, because, this is technically sort of speaking in the media. Pop doesn't love doing that, especially. And he wrote like sort of this analytical, almost like a term paper. Like he was talking about some of the stuff that you obviously have related to him about what you've learned and your struggles and your journey. I am stunned that Gregg Popovich wrote this, and he very clearly, to me, spent a lot of time on this. And I wonder how many times Pop has been offered to write something like this. I can't believe he did it. But you played there for how many years did you play in San Antonio? 3 years?
3.
I can't believe he's saying yes to too many people on this. And so to me, it shows the relationship that you had with Pop during that time there. And one of the things that's in the book is you talk about when you learned your father had passed away, and he'd been sick for some time, and you've been, going out to LA as much as you could to spend time with him, even during the season on off days and stuff. But you write about the moment that when you learned that he passed, and Pop coming to your hotel room. So many people see the gruff side of Pop, but then there's that other side. This was an example of the other side. This obviously was a key moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just trust. I was nervous to ask Pop.
I'm nervous to ask Pop what the final score was.
Yeah, like so. It took me a second, because I do honor our relationship more than anything, and I know how he is. But when I asked him, it was the quickest response, no
Huh.
hesitation to do it, and it just goes back to my relationship with Pop. You would think I was Tim Duncan the way he treat me. More so like you would think I was there for 20 years. The relationship me and Pop had right away was it was so genuine. It was so real. It was nights right after games before I even get on the freeway. I'll be on the phone with Pop until I get home. We talking about real things. There was so many moments that throughout my time there, because that's when my dad was like really struggling. There was so many times where it was certain games where Pop would come to me and ask me something, and he'd tell me after the game, just go home. Just go home. We have shoot around in 2 days. You don't got to be at shoot around. Just be ready for the game. It was so many games I had in San Antonio where in between games I wasn't there. I was tending to my dad, and he allowed me to do that, and with no distraction, with no nothing. Told me don't have to worry about media. And it was the coolest thing because there was so many moments I cherished with my dad during that time that Pop allowed me to do it with no issue at all.
Yeah. And that's he also knew that you were at a tough time in your career, where the shock of the Raptors trade. And that's you've discussed that a lot. I don't want you to go over that ground, but the shock of that trade, Pop acknowledged in the forward how much that was something that he wanted to have to sort of help you through. That he realized right away how difficult this situation was, and I think you had very productive years in San Antonio.
For sure. He did it right away, and he did it in a very challenging way that I needed it for my career. That that meant the most to me. I remember one of our first shoot arounds. He never even told me this. He never prepared me for this. I remember we had a shoot around, and he brought us all in, and first thing he said was, "DeMar, you the point guard. Never played point guard a damn career." But he challenged me to be a playmaker at the highest level to make my teammates better. And that gave me a different outlook towards the game and the way I approached the game. He always told me just give me 3.5 quarters, and from there be you. But it opened my mind to a lot of my playmaking skills started in that moment when Pop told me I was a point guard. I never played point guard a day in my life, but
Yeah, you started averaging like 7 assists a game. We're like, what's going on? What's
yeah,
going on here?
and he just showed me how easy I could do it if you just pay attention to it. So he did a lot of little things like that really meant a lot for me.
So Bill Belichick recently, he hasn't retired yet, but Belichick, Nick Saban, Pop, kind of cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Saban and Belichick have now gone into the media. If and when Pop gives it up, you think Pop's going in the media?
You will not see Pop if you don't got a close relationship with Pop. Pop will be like Don Nelson.
Yeah, except with wine, not pot. He'll be out there with wine.
Exactly.
All right, I know you got to go. Before you go, I want to talk about this NBA season. First off, I thought I'd ask you, what are your emotions leaving the Bulls, a place where you had some great seasons, had some big plays for them. They all of a sudden like pivoted away, and I don't exactly know how it went down, but like all of a sudden it was like, yeah, we're not going to re-sign you. Did that surprise you, especially since the way they'd operated, and especially since what's on their roster? Like, how did that relationship end?
It didn't necessarily surprise me because, even with everything we were dealing with injuries, especially this last year with injuries, everything that was going on, I try to do as much as I can in my power to like salvage the season as best as I can. To be honest with you, it was, I think I led the lead in minutes this year because I just wanted to try to get us to a place to try to change what I knew was the inevitable to come. To say, because you kind of feel it. You've been in the league long enough. You kind of where something is going. So I tried my best because that city was so like embracing to me. They took me in. The culture behind that obviously the 90s, the 80s, Michael Jordan, like that's a sports city throughout. And for the first time in my career to be a part of a town that's from top to bottom in sports, it lives and die by their sports. I just wanted to be a staple in that as best as I can, and especially those guys the young guys there that I played with, the Kobe's, Pat Williams. Like I wanted to be with those guys and show them how to win at a high level because they made coming to work easy. And the respect I have for Billy Donovan, it was, I just wanted everybody to kind of eat from that more so than anything. So, I tried to do my best. I didn't want to leave, but business, basketball, things happen and you got to make a decision from there.
Yeah, I guess they did right by you. They helped you with the sign and trade, getting out to Sac. Yeah. So the Kings have not many times in their history ever gotten, I haven't done my research on this. I don't know if the Kings have ever signed a free agent year-of-year quality before, where they got one of the top free agents on the market. To the outside, it was a bit surprising because it doesn't look like a perfect fit. It doesn't make sense. They were like, wait a minute, we, the Sacramento Kings, can get DeMar DeRozan. Let's get DeMar DeRozan. From the outside, with what they've got, all the offensive players they've got, and you've played different roles in your career, but how do you see yourself fitting in there with De'Aaron Fox, with Domantas Sabonis, with Keegan Murray? Like, how do you see that fitting?
And was great about that. Even a couple of weeks ago, Sabonis, he wanted to come out to LA, work out with me. We spent a whole week together just working out. Guys embrace me. Guys ask questions. It's so much that people haven't even got a chance to see of us trying to already build that chemistry and understand that, everybody there want to win. Everybody. So from my standpoint, like you said, I've played in different roles. And that's the easy part for me at this stage in my career. It's just more so I just want to be able to be a part of something that want to win. And when you want to win, everything else take care of yourself. And those guys want to win. The coach want to win. You got a great coach in Mike Brown who want to win. That's going to push it. So to me, it's I see it fitting in just fine.
Who was the lead recruiter? Who was the guy or guys trying to really get you hard there?
Man, all those guys had reached out. The crazy thing, like I remember one morning I had a text from Malik, De'Aaron. Obviously I've known Trey Lyles for years. Played with him in San Antonio. Sabonis, Leandro Barbosa reached out. He that was my vet when my second, third year in the league. So he was blowing my phone up nonstop. So everybody, it was kind of like a collective effort that made me feel overly wanted.
Yeah, because this commercial for this Netflix show where Sabonis is like doing group text with LeBron and Jimmy Butler. I'm not so sure I buy Sabonis on the group text, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is the leader of the group text. I'm not sure about that, but that should be an interesting fit. You playing pick and roll basketball with him.
Looking forward to it, man. I'm excited. I'm telling you, we worked out Monday through Friday every day, and just the dialogue, the work we put in. You would think we played together for 2 years after just a week of working out.
Hey, DeMar, thank you so much. I could talk to you so much more about the book and because this is really, it's kind of a sad book.
Yeah.
I really don't think I scratched the surface. I would just say, especially this book is a lot about fathers and sons.
Mm-hmm.
This book is a lot of, you discuss a lot about, the relationship there. As a father who's raising a son, I was taking things away from it. That was where it was hitting me. Obviously, you talk about your career in this book, which is in there. But to me, the stuff that is a real article is you talking about your relationship with your father and how it affected you and still affects you to this day. So thank you for coming on the Hoop Collective. It's Above the Noise, my story of chasing calm. DeMar DeRozan, we'll talk to you later. Have a great season. Thank you also to Mary Ford from Goodwin Sports, who I have known for 23 years, DeMar. Back when you were watching dub tapes of Magic Johnson, I was hanging out with Mary Ford. So thank you to Mary, and we'll have a great season, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Okay, thank you so much to DeMar for doing that. Really enjoyed that conversation, a little something different that we do. I do like to have folks on who are having books out. I know we've had Chris Paul on, we've had Rich Paul, now DeMar. We've probably had other guys I forget, but I do like to do that. So I hope you enjoyed that. We got another podcast coming up. We're a little off schedule this week as we work through the end of the summer here. We have a series running on ESPN.com this week involving possible expansion in the NBA. So we had a big project with that come out this week. And on Thursday, we're going to have a podcast looking at the expansion draft. There hasn't been one in 20 years. There may be another one coming on the horizon. And it's one of the most fascinating things and rare things that happens in the NBA. And with some other folks from ESPN, we're going to talk about what an expansion draft might look like. And we're even going to sort of mock what an expansion draft would look like if it actually was happening today. It's not happening today, but if it would happen today. And I think once you listen to that, you will see why it's one of the most interesting topics of conversation when you talk to people in front offices, what exactly it could mean and all of the big decisions that could surround it. So we'll talk about that coming up on Thursday. And with that, thank you to Jackson, my producer. Thank you to DeMar DeRozan. Thank you for watching, listening to Hoop Collective. We'll talk to you soon.